Today, we're diving into a 1,000-year story of survival, culture, and incredible complexity, the experience of the Jewish people living right at the heart of the Byzantine Empire. And really, it all boils down to this one central question. For over a millennium, the Byzantine Empire saw itself as the defender of the one true Christian faith. So how on earth did a major non-Christian community manage to survive, and in some ways even thrive, right in its shadow? Well, that's what we're here to unpack. So here's our roadmap. First, we'll look at their deep roots as inheritors of Rome. Then, we'll dig into the emperor's law that shaped their lives. After that, we'll explore their vibrant internal community in a world within a world, face the tough times in moments of crisis, and finally wrap up with their enduring legacy. Okay, let's start at the very beginning, which really sets the whole stage, inheritors of Rome. This is probably the most important thing to grasp right from the start. When the Byzantine Empire was taking shape, the Jewish people were already there. Seriously, they had communities in Greece, Asia Minor, and the Levant for centuries under Roman rule. They weren't outsiders or newcomers. They were part of the very fabric of the world that Byzantium was built on. So if they were already there, how did a new Christian empire deal with them? Well, this is where we get into the really fascinating and complicated legal stuff. We're calling it the Emperor's Law, which basically created a paradox, a kind of gilded cage. The whole legal foundation for their existence came from an old Roman concept called religio licita. It literally means a permitted religion. Now, this wasn't about tolerance as we think of it today. It was a legal status that gave Judaism official protection. It meant the state recognized their right to exist and to practice their faith. Which leads to the obvious question, right? If your religion is legally protected, what's the big deal? What was the problem? Why do we even talk about a gilded cage? Well, here's where that paradox just snaps into focus. On one hand, yes, they were protected. They had the right to observe the Sabbath and their holidays. Synagogues were seen as protected property. They even had a lot of legal control inside their own communities. But, and this is a huge but, they were also legally and officially subordinate. They were banned from building any new synagogues, they were totally excluded from holding public office, and they were forbidden from trying to get converts or even from owning Christian slaves. So protection came with a price, permanent, built-in inferiority. So when you boil it all down, the goal of the law was crystal clear. It wasn't meant to destroy Judaism, not at all. It was designed to contain it. To preserve the Jewish people, sure, but also to make sure they could never, ever challenge the total dominance of Christianity. But, imperial law is only half the story. To really get how they survived, you have to look inside their communities. And that's our next section, a world within a world. So you've got all these rules and restrictions from the outside. How did they actually make life work on a day-to-day basis? How did they build a world for themselves? Well, they did it by creating this amazingly strong internal structure. They had their own community councils running the show. They had Jewish courts, the Beth Din, to settle their own disputes. They were even in charge of collecting their own taxes for the government, which actually gave them more autonomy. And crucially, they ran their own charities and their own schools, making sure their culture and knowledge got passed down. So while the state put this cage around them, what they did inside that cage was build a rich, vibrant world. Life was all about the synagogue, about family, and about this powerful sense of community that they absolutely needed to survive. And this description just nails it. They were acting as a state within a state. The empire might have been in charge on the outside, but on the inside, the community pretty much ran itself. Of course, a delicate balance like that, it was never going to hold forever. And that brings us to the darker times, our fourth section, moments of crisis, when that gilded cage tightened into a vice. It's really important to understand this wasn't just 1,000 years of the same old oppression. It was much more unpredictable than that. You'd have these long stretches of relative calm and stability, and then bam, a sudden, violent crisis where all those legal protections just fell apart. You can see some of the absolute worst flashpoints here. Back in the 720s, you have Emperor Leo III kicking off the first official campaign of forced conversions. That was a horror that would pop up again in later centuries. Then, in 1996, a totally new threat appears. Crusaders from the West, passing through on their way to the Holy Land, brought this wave of mob violence with them. And finally, the ultimate disaster, 1204, when the Fourth Crusade didn't even make it to the Holy Land and just sacked Constantinople instead, destroying everything, including the ancient Jewish quarter. So after 1,000 years of this constant push and pull, of stability and crisis, what was left? What's the takeaway? That brings us to our final section, an enduring legacy. So let's do a real quick summary of what we've seen. The experience was defined by this weird dual status, legally recognized but socially inferior. It was this constant dance of challenge from the outside and response from the inside. They survived by creating this incredibly organized community that protected their identity through long periods of calm and through moments of sheer terror. And what came out of this 1,000-year journey was a culture that was completely unique. These communities weren't Sephardic or Ashkenazi. They became known as the Roman Notes. They spoke their own Greek dialect, they had their own prayer services, their own traditions, a whole culture forged in the shadow of Byzantium. And I think this quote just says it all. They bent, but they did not break. Their story isn't just a story about victims. It's about survivors. Survivors who actively navigated a really tough world and managed to build something lasting for themselves, right in the heart of a Christian empire. And that really leaves us with a final big idea to think about. The story of the Romaniotes makes you ask a bigger question. What does it actually take for a culture, for a people, to survive for a millennium? Not in power, but living right next to it,